We are live. We are live around the globe. Dave Clare and Gary White. Dave, I'm in Melbourne, and Gary, he is in Orlando. So this is Melbourne, Australia, all the way through to Orlando, Florida. So I don't know if you can get much more global than that at the moment. But Gary's at a Maxwell Leadership Conference, speaking and doing his magic over there, and meeting a bunch of wonderful human beings. And I'm here visiting clients, sometimes disguised as golfing at Royal Melbourne. But yeah, here visiting clients and doing some productivity work with some clients we have over here in Melbourne, Australia, and really excited about that. But this is session 2 of our breakdown of how to get people on the same page. And last week, Gary and I talked about the process for human behavior and did a bit of technical after our technical difficulties that we went through of losing power in the studio. We managed to fumble our way through helping people to understand what the process for human behavior and why that's important about getting people onto the same page. And at the end of that session, what we promised we would do at this session is the incomparable Gary White will be sharing with us how to effectively communicate. So if you think from a human behavior point of view and helping other people become the best version of themselves to do their life's best work while in your care and beyond, and then getting them onto that page and then being able to help everyone communicate better and understand each other better. That's what we're going to cover today. Gary is just getting his presentation. He's going to do a couple of slides, I believe, if we can get. Technology is attacking Gary this week. It attacked me last week. So we just keep on pushing on through. So Gary, how we doing?
Well, it just decided to start working, so we're here.
Well, let's add it to the stream then. Hey, let's add it in there. All right. Well, anyway, so before we get too far into that, just want to share quickly a little bit about what you're doing over there, Gary, in Orlando.
Yeah, so Dave, great to be with you and everyone viewing. I'm at the Maxwell Leadership Conference. This happens every 6 months in Orlando, Florida. So it's my every 6-month appointment with personal growth. I had the opportunity to speak on the main stage yesterday. I'll be speaking again tomorrow. And we've had Ryan Leake here with us, John Maxwell, of course, speaking. And it's just been an absolutely amazing time. So it's great. It's great to meet so many wonderful people from all over the world. A lot of people from Australia here. So yeah, it's been.
Say
great.
good day for us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So are you good to go? You all
Yeah.
set? All right. So Gary's going to share with you effective communication strategies, and I'm going to grill him and question him to bring out some of the really nuggets of gold that he's going to share with us and dive a little bit deeper into how that relates to us all getting people onto the same page. So, Gary, I'll
Okay,
work this.
wonderful.
You're good to go, son.
Okay, wonderful. All right, Dave. Listen, and everyone, listen. I'm just going to share just a little bit with you. I've just got a PDF here. And first, Dave, is it scrolling okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good, very good. Just a little bit about myself. Leadership and communication coach. Communication is the area where I really excel, and so I just want to share just a few things with you because I know that everything rises and falls on leadership, and your leadership will rise and fall on your ability to effectively communicate. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some patterns that you can recognize in people's communication so that you understand what matters to them. So what you're seeing right now are really 4 representations of the 4 main personalities. So top left, you've got dominant. Top right, you've got the influencing. They're typically lighthearted. Bottom right, you've got the steady, they call them. And bottom left, the compliant. These are the 4 basic personalities. And as we go through, I'm going to show you some things about them that's just going to enlighten you, illuminate you, and help you to understand how to connect with people even better. So to give you an example, there's really a couple of things that you need to know about someone. And one is whether they're more outgoing or more reserved, and the other is more task-oriented or more relationship-oriented. So I just want to talk about that one for a moment. This is really kind of an image of my wife when she and I are getting ready to go on vacation. She's very task oriented. She's got the list. She's got everything laid out. Knows exactly the route that we're going, where we might need to stop along the way. Now, this is me on vacation, right? I'm just carefree.
I like what you've
I'm
done with your hair there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like Jordy would really love that.
Oh
But
yeah.
I said, honey, if we don't have it, we'll just buy it. We'll just buy it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between my wife and I. Now, there's plenty of you out there, I'm sure, that are laughing about this moment because you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they're either more outgoing or they're more reserved. They're more people oriented or more task oriented. So let's talk about the top of this grid first. Top of the grid, let's look at the top right. They're outgoing, they're people oriented. These are the influencing. These are the funnest people in the world, lighthearted. You might have seen them represented in some movies, Squirrel. Some movies that the where the dog is squirrel, right?
Yeah.
Because they just enjoy things and they pay attention to everything. Now, let me explain about the outgoing. Yes, you can see that in how they conduct themselves, but also whenever you begin to talk to someone, it's how quickly they process information. And that is huge because people sometimes can hold back when they get in a crowd for whatever reason, and you may not be able to read them that well. So once you engage in conversation with them, pay attention to how quickly they process the information. That will tell you if they're more outgoing or more reserved. So on the left side of the grid, you've got task oriented. And so now we're looking at an outgoing top and task oriented left. So that top left picture, these are the dominant personalities. And what matters to them is results. So just as you can see in that he's a bottom line kind of guy, right? So they're either more task oriented or more relationship oriented. Okay. And on the bottom of the grid, if I just go back up, of course, I don't know what just happened there, but let's do this. Let's do this. On the bottom of the grid, they're more reserved. And then you see here on the bottom right, more relationship oriented.
Mm.
Bottom left, more detail oriented. This is relationship on this side. This is task on this side. The moment that I know if someone is more outgoing or reserved, more task oriented or more relationship oriented, I will know what matters to them. And that is the part that's huge. Okay. So let me get past some of these that we've already looked at. Yeah, I don't know how that jumped ahead so fast,
Yeah.
but at any rate, there's the reserve, the relationship, and the task that I was just speaking of. Okay.
Maybe it's being run by a driver or
Yeah, it could.
a
It could.
type personality is running your PDF.
Yeah, he's like, hurry up, man. Come on, come on. All right, so let me talk to you about the dominant personalities. These are outgoing, task oriented. You might recognize these folks whenever you're talking with them, and as you're speaking, they're going, "Yep, right, got it. Yep, yep." They're not being rude. That is the tempo of how they process information. Okay. And so in that, there's an indication of, hey, don't give me the 80%. Get to the bottom line, give me the 20%. Look at the bottom attribute right here, results. That's what matters to them. They seek control naturally. They're very decisive. They don't have to look at something very long. They just make a decision. And look at this, they're very direct. And they're very comfortable with being direct. So you might encounter someone who's very direct and you think, man, boy, they're just right up in your face. No, they're a dominant personality and they communicate according to their perspective and their preference, and we all do. Okay. And they make up 3% of the population. Okay. 3% of the population. Next, we have the I personalities. They're outgoing, relationship oriented. See this guy? I mean, life is good, right? 11% of the population. An enjoyable experience is what really matters to them. Okay. They're persuasive, they're spontaneous, very friendly, and they love the recognition. So that spotlight, they are all about it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here's the interesting thing. Their main fear is rejection.
Mm.
So an I personality, they can be the best at getting on stage and getting in front of people because they're in their element. And they can get stage fright quicker than anyone because if they start paying attention to their fear, then all of a sudden, they get the sweaty palms. Okay. But an enjoyable experience is what matters to them. So you say, okay, well, man, how do you tell that? Well, if you've ever talked to someone and they're telling you about their weekend or their travels or where they've gone, and they begin to tell you about the experiences, man, we had so much fun. People naturally communicate what matters to them, and
Mm.
so in that, you know exactly that an enjoyable experience matters to them. So if you want to connect with them, listen to their story. Maybe ask a couple of questions about the story, or say, "Oh, that's incredible. How long have you been doing that?" And show
Mm.
that interest in them. And all of a sudden, you've engaged their positive energy. Now, there may be some on the line, Dave, that are saying, "Listen, I don't have time for that." And I would just
Yeah.
say, if you're a leader in an organization, you don't have time not to do this. You can't afford
Well,
not to.
yeah. Well, you're basically saying, Gary, that you don't have time for your people,
Right? Exactly.
right? Whether you
And
don't have time for this, then that's that. By the way, just very quickly, good morning to Mario from the Philippines. He just jumped in and just said good morning. So it would
right
be
on.
remiss of us not to acknowledge Mario.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Dave. Because
Yeah.
and everybody, I can't see what Dave is seeing. I'm just looking at
Yes.
my
Yeah.
my
Well, I'm running the machine in the background here,
Okay,
so
yeah,
Mario jumped on, and I want to at least acknowledge him there. And the other comment, Gary, is you'd have to be an outgoing person to wear a big, bright yellow shirt like that,
yeah.
like that
Isn't that true?
looking like Big Bird, like
Yeah,
that
yeah. They got it.
outgoing personality.
They got to be looking good. Okay, so
Yeah.
now look at the percentage on this one.
Mm.
69% of the population is an S personality. So
Mm.
you've heard it said that people need to know how much you care before they care how much you know.
Mm.
This is why. Now the interesting thing about this group of people, they're the nicest people in the world, Dave. They're reserved, people oriented, they're sweet, they're courteous, and to be quite honest, I mean, there's not too many people that we run into that just aren't smiling at you, and they're just courteous. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of places we go, and people are saying thank you, and they're
Mm.
just all those good things. Well, the S personalities, they see through that lens, and they have that perspective, and they have that preference. They are destined to serve people. They have been created to serve people, and in their mind, it's kind of like Lumiere on Beauty and the Beast. You know, uh, life is so unnerving for a servant who's not serving, right? So if they don't have someone to serve, it really gets unnerving for them. But
Mm.
affirmation and acceptance is what really matters to them. Now, one interesting thing is they make great leaders. They
Mm.
make great leaders. Look at this: team oriented, follow through, loyalty. And Dave, they can be a little backward about being direct because it can come across as confrontational, and because they're so accommodating and harmony is their best friend, they can be a little backward about being direct. So that's where a dominant personality can really complement and really help with that. Then we've to round it out here, Dave. We've got the compliant personalities, 17%. Okay, so these are the ones that these are like your CEOs, your engineers. These are your rocket scientists. These are your surgeons, and I'm so glad the surgeons are detail oriented.
Yes.
Really glad of that. Uh, I mean,
And these are the
Dave.
only ones who've been paying attention to the percentages up in the right hand corner.
Yeah. That's correct. You nailed it, Dave. You nailed it. So details really matter to them.
Yeah.
And now this gentleman, he's smiling, and I don't say that to say that the C personalities don't smile, But here's what I will say. Here's what's very interesting. Those that have a really high value in the C portion of their personality, like it's really high on the graph, they can actually be expressionless. And
Mm.
so I'm an I personality, Dave, and so rejection is that main fear. I could have great difficulty talking with someone and them not showing any expression. And before I understood all this, I used to think, well, that person doesn't like me, or
Mm.
boy, it's really cold in the room. And none of that was true. None of that was true. A really high C personality, they're hearing you and they are filing that information. They are laser focused. They get in their zone and they are laser focused. And so it's really good to know some of these things so that you can understand what matters to others. And so that's what I want. I just wanted to kind of give a little snippet this evening of how we can work together and grow together. Because
Mm.
we're all sitting around the table and we all have a little bit different perspective. But it's just like Stephen Covey said, Dave. He said, "Seek first to understand, then seek to be understood." And John Maxwell said, "Good leaders ask great questions and don't do all the talking, but they do ask good questions." So, hope that
So
was helpful.
let me hopefully ask some great questions then.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so when you think about, we talked about last week with the human behavior part and how it's important to understand, since it's people who make things happen, and the adage is that you don't build a business, you build the people, and the people build the business, and that
yeah,
includes you as a leader, because we talked about you having to go first so your team can go further. Um, and we when we're going to look at organizational behavior next week, and you think about, okay, we've understood how people are, how they become who they are, how to help them become their best, and so on. Now we've looked at how the way we can communicate, and the emphasizing the fact that you should care about this stuff because you care about your people. And if you don't
mm-hmm.
have time for this, then you don't have time for your people. Then don't even worry about trying to get everybody on the same page, because that ain't going to happen.
No,
I'm going to comment here. Kylie's jumped on. Kylie's amazing, by the way. I've always dreamed of going to his conference, love his podcast, books, and everything about John Maxwell. There you go.
wonderful.
Uh,
Yeah,
well, Kylie, Gary White is actually, just like is a clone of John. He's like, you're getting to be right in front of John Maxwell himself, basically, right here, because Gary is phenomenal. You're like a master coach or something, aren't you, with Maxwell?
yeah. So I'm in the executive program. So really, the highest level of what could be brought of John's content,
Yeah.
and not just John, but John surrounds himself with what he calls a league of leaders.
Yeah.
And so we have the opportunity to bring that content as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Kylie's also said here, it's the people that get the results. People first, they'll drive the strategy and the goals and the outcomes.
Yeah.
100%, which is why we're going to look at like how to build the cultural framework and do all that, so then the culture and strategy can be aligned on one page, get everyone on the same page in terms of our culture, our strategy, and execute on that. But you can have the greatest framework for culture, but if you do not know how to effectively communicate all those things, and with like you've just shared with us, and understand the different types of people in your team, how they like to be
Yeah.
communicated to. What most importantly, first thing of leadership, Gary, of course, is self-awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is really working out what your style is. Is that fair?
Yeah, it really is. And I just briefly mentioned some of the fears. There's main fears in each one.
Mm.
And that's an idea that they would just be sensitive to. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and there's blind spots for each one. So let me just talk about myself. I'll talk about the
Yeah.
I personalities. Rejection being that main fear. Well, I need to be aware of that,
Yeah.
because let's say, for instance, Dave, my friend, walks past me, glances, doesn't smile, just keeps going. My main fear, the main thing that I'm be sensitive to, is rejection. I could immediately begin to say, Dave just snubbed me.
Mm.
What's going on? But if we'll pause and consider just for a moment, if I'll challenge my own fear, so that's that self-leadership. If I'll pause and consider, it allows my level of awareness to come up higher. Some of that thinking that you like to talk about, Dave, and then I can consider, well, hey, Dave was focused on something. He's headed somewhere, right? My experiences with Dave are always good. So I can just take my fear and put it on the shelf. So
Yeah.
that's some of that self-leadership. The other piece is understanding what our blind spots are. Now, our blind spots come into play whenever I really get tuned in to the I portion of my personality. Now, that's a perspective and a preference. So that's what I see, and I really get tuned into that. I can have blind spots. So just imagine you're in a vehicle and you have the mirrors focused away from you. Your blind
Yeah.
spots are minimized. I look in those mirrors, I don't see me, I see
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
But if I turn those mirrors towards myself and I look and I see myself, and it's the same way, if I
Yeah.
only see my perspective and I only see what matters to me, my blind spots are huge. So what happens for an I personality when I get my blind spot is I'll become illogical. And the reason for that, Dave, is because remember that I was talking about earlier, the tempo
Yeah.
of how we process information. I'm processing, and then I get some enthusiasm on it, and now it's
Mm.
on steroids, and now it's really going. But I'm talking before I've got it all figured out right here, and
Yeah.
everybody listening, I know what I'm trying to say, and I'm eventually going to get there. But everyone else is going, this guy needs to go get some coffee or something, or take a nap. Because he makes zero sense, right? So I've got to be aware of that, because if I get in my blind spot, it makes it very challenging for others to follow, and that's the big deal about the blind spots.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for using yourself as an example, Gary. And I'll tell you, you know me, if I was walking past you and I just had a look at you, I'd give you a wink so you knew I recognized you, and I would keep going because I'd be on a mission to do something. You know what I mean, right?
Oh yeah, Dave's on a mission. Dave's on a
But
mission.
the first time we met across a crowded room, it was when we were in Florida there, and we
Uh-huh.
talked online like this for the first time.
Yeah, yeah,
And then when we finally got there, I was having a conversation with somebody. I glanced over at somebody's shoulder. I was talking to, and then I could see you over there. And then you glanced over, and I just said, "Sorry, I'll be back in a second." And
yeah,
went straight to Gary Glad because I did not want
yeah.
him to feel rejection.
Good
Although at
connection.
the time I did not even have a clue about any of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
This is all the stuff I've learned post, but I look back at that moment, kind of have a laugh to myself. And what if I looked over and like, oh, there's Gary, and then I just kept going on? You might have thought
yeah,
he's
yeah,
rejected.
and naturally I might have thought, and so that's where when you talk about leading yourself first,
Yeah,
hey, that's part of the recipe
yeah.
of good leading others.
Mm.
Leading yourself is part of the recipe. You got to do that well, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to get your insights on, Gary, is so self awareness. You need to know everyone's style. You need to know your style. But a lot of people might think, well, hang on, my style isn't the same as theirs, so I'm going to struggle to communicate with them. Can you talk a little bit about? Well, I refer to it as style flexing. So,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, if I'm an ID, so I'm kind of very high in both I and D. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know which one. Sometimes I'm really driver. Sometimes I'm influence. So I kind of chameleon between the two. But if I'm sitting there dealing with a C personality, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm going to struggle to communicate with them. Or,
Yeah, yeah. You could. So it still comes down to understanding what matters to them, and then here's what I know about you, Dave. You value people enough that you're going to seek to make a connection.
mm,
And so so leadership, and I'm talking to an absolute pro in leadership here.
thanks.
But leadership is much like leading the dance. You know,
Mm,
if you've ever done any dancing,
yep.
salsa dancing,
It's the only time I actually get to lead in my house.
okay, well then you know what I'm talking about. Um, you have to you lead as though you're showing the way versus making them follow.
Mm,
And you are sensitive to their rhythm. You're
mm,
sensitive to their resistance, right? And you're reading their body language, and you want to make that connection with them, and then simply lead the way. Statistically, if in the first 30 seconds when we interact with someone, if we will connect with them,
mm,
then the communication flows, and there's very little resistance. So a couple of nuances about the different personalities, okay, is that, and it comes off that word preference,
right.
okay, that word preference, I cannot emphasize that enough, okay. So like Dave, you prefer to get results, and you prefer to get them quicker rather
Mm,
than slower, sooner rather than later. Now, there'd be some other D personalities like yourself, Dave, that if I'm paying attention to them, they may not be trimmed up quite as high as you are,
Mm.
right? Okay, and so there's some variances and some differences. A C personality, and so D's can be quick. Okay, yeah, let's go. A C personality, if they're working on something, and I bring them something else, say, hey, I need you to do this too. I'm going to frustrate them. Why? Because the details matter and they are focused on the project at hand, and
Mm.
they really prefer, it's not that they won't do it, it's not that they're not team players or anything like that. But if I want to engage their positive energy, and let's say, Dave, you're a C, then I would say, hey, Dave, sorry to bother you, but this will take just a second. I've got an additional project, and once you're complete with that, and you've had some time to double check and make sure that everything's good on that, if you just check in with me, then we'll see when's a good time to put this on the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Now, if you're a D personality like yourself, Dave,
Mm.
I'm going to say, actually, and you're an I too, I'm going to come in and I'm going to fuzz up your hair, and you're like, oh, quit it, quit it, quit it, quit it,
Yeah.
and you're
Don't
not
mess
going to
with
be
the
mad,
pro,
and you're
brother.
not,
Don't mess
and you're
with the
not
pro.
going, yeah, and you won't be mad at me for doing it, right? But no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I could say, hey, Dave, and before I got it out of my mouth, that
Mm.
this document, you've got it out of my hand, you're looking at it and you're saying, no problem.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
Because,
Yeah.
and I would know that I can come to you with something like that,
Yep.
especially if I need it to move quick. But
Yeah.
if you're a C personality, I would not do that because I know that I'm going to frustrate you.
Mm.
And so good leadership is good connecting, and everyone's different. And so
Yeah.
you get the greatest traction when you engage their positive energy.
Yeah.
And you'll do that. Human behavior, as you know, people
Mm.
gravitate towards what matters to them. You connect on their level, then you can lead them.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And when we talk about the getting people onto the same page, I think it's really important to understand this. One of the things that we help people do, from obviously getting the organizational purpose uh, defined so everybody knows why we come to work every day beyond getting a paycheck. That why the organization matters, then helping them understand why their work matters, then helping them understand why that matters to them, and that's right
Mm,
there. And if you take that what you're talking about, and then we can help get this personal connection to the public sense of purpose, but also create a personal connection through the way we can communicate with those people. You just deepen richening the engagement of human being in the organization, because they
mhm.
know that you as a leader actually care, because you're making the time and effort to communicate with them in a way that makes sense to them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we know, we talked before, people, when this stuff happens, people leave an organization. They're sort of, when they leave an organization, they're not leaving the organization, they're leaving the leader or the manager, because
yeah,
the manager did not connect with them,
yeah, yeah. You're
right?
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And leadership, when you're leading an organization, if you're doing it what I call right, and I think what you would call doing it right, doing it
Yeah.
correctly, it's going to stretch you
Mm.
as a leader.
Yep.
It's going to be a growth process for you. So one organization that I work with, one of their leaders, who's a high C personality, was having great difficulty with one of the employees who's an I personality. Imagine that, right?
No.
And so they do have a lot to do in his department. Their department is laden pretty heavy, and you've got to stay on task. Okay,
Yeah.
period. There's not much flex for small talk and all. Well, this I employee, he was wanting to small talk with everybody, and the rest of the employees, they're high C personalities, and they're on task and they're getting frustrated with him. So this manager, who's a high C, he's talking to me. He said, man, I don't know what to do with this guy. He won't stay on task, and it's frustrating everybody else. I said, well, let's experiment. I said, you're a C. He said, yeah. So he's an I, right? I said, what's his main fear? He says, well, it's rejection. I said, okay, maybe he's just operating in his fear,
Mm.
because he had been kind of getting his feelings hurt. I said, maybe he's operating in his fear. I said, Now, you can either say, I've got a problem and we're just going to extinguish the problem, or you could see it as an opportunity and it'll stretch your leadership.
Yeah.
I said, but affirm him, walk by every so often. And if he's got something to tell you, some funny story, take just a moment and listen. And, give him some affirmations. And so, I don't know, it's probably 2 weeks. It's probably 2 weeks after that. He told me, he said, I've been doing that. He said, I'll just go by and smile. Because remember, this manager is a high C personality,
Yeah.
expressionless.
Hmm.
So he said, I smile, because that was one of the things I told him. I smile, I pat him on the back and say, hey, you're doing a good job. And he said, things just seem to be going better. I said, right. Because all you did was engage. You took just a moment to engage his positive energy. And that in that, Dave, you appreciate the differences. And when you do that, you can leverage the strength of others. And now all of a sudden, instead of two dogs at the front of the sled pulling this way,
Yeah.
now they're going the same direction.
And I think that's really important. And it's those moments. And one of my little Clarisms is that the more you allow the moments to happen, the more momentum your organization has.
Yeah.
Right. And then obviously the more momentum you have, the more your organization, the faster it learns, the faster it evolves. So when we
Yeah.
think about getting people onto the same page, we want to create those moments or allow those moments to happen. And the more those
Yes.
moments happen, the more momentum you get in your organization. So it's
Yeah.
really, really important point, I think, that you make there, Gary, that people need to understand that it's just a moment. It's like you don't
Yeah.
have to sit there for half an hour. It'd just be a
No.
quick moment.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely true. Um, and listen, whenever you have enough, and let's just talk about some momentum, Dave.
Mm,
When you have enough of those moments with people, it begins to solidify trust
mm,
because they know that they're seen and they're heard. And
yeah.
then when you need to have a critical conversation with them, they already know that you appreciate them.
Yeah.
They already feel valued by you. And that crucial conversation can go so much better. And honestly, as a coach inside of companies, I have to do the exact same thing. I have to establish rapport, earn trust, engage the positive energy. I'm doing all these things even
Mm,
as a coach. I'm not
yeah.
on their payroll as an employee. But I'm in there and I'm still having to do these things. So it allows me, whenever I've had to have some crucial conversations with some managers, that rapport is already there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just
And I think,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, and that's an awesome insight that people understand. Even like other people in your organization, maybe not part of the team, but you have other people coming in who are helping that team to get where they need to go to getting everyone on the same page and executing at a far greater rate. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
We need to have insight onto who they are, um, and make sure that it's that we're style flexing to suit them, that they're style flexing to suit us. And if not, it's our responsibility if we're bringing in a third party to work with us to help them to understand that.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
can get some people to come in and just rub people the wrong way. Imagine getting a coach who's just a driver. Like
Of
even for
course.
me, when I'm sitting there working with our clients, I want to help them get their results, but I'm also very
Yeah.
intuitive to the fact that there's some people who want to have a great experience, who make sure it's an amazing experience working with us. There's some people who need the stats and the data and the facts and the information. Actually, I've got one leadership team we're working with that has all three. Um, well, actually, one of them is a driver like myself, which is fine. The other is the social, and the other is compliant. There's no I in their team. They're well, they have moments of I, right? I bring that part of it. So,
Yeah.
but it's really fascinating working with those three of them in the leadership team, and they know their own styles and everything like that. So our ability then to make sure that when I'm going through information with them and looking at some facts and looking at results, and then also, looking at how we do this together as a team, and to make sure that the social are all. It's when you start to see it, it's like wow, it's like this light just shines on everything, and it's so powerful the work that you do from this and when you can capture that as a leader of your organization and the third parties, the team, everybody, all on the same page moving forward, all the stakeholders in your business, it's just such a powerful thing, Gary.
Yeah. And Dave, when the ideal team
Mm,
is one of each, a D, I, S, and C, that have respect for one another, that are have respect for themselves, value themselves, and value one another. And I say it that way, Dave. You know why? Because if I don't value me, I'll have a hard time valuing you because I
Yeah.
can't get over myself.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so let's put Gary on the spot here.
Okay.
So you know our team, you know me,
Yeah.
and the rest of our team. So Lisa, D, I, S, or C?
Lisa, she's an I.
Right.
Yeah.
What's her second style?
S.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jordan.
Jordan, I haven't talked to her a whole lot, but I'm gonna say she's CS. And I know we did her profile, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but I'm going to say she's CS because she's fairly detail oriented. So I could even go back, Dave, and I do this a lot. I plug it in. I
Yeah.
go, okay, is she more outgoing, more reserved, more reserved? Is she more task oriented, more relationship oriented? While she smiles a lot and wonderful in that way, she focuses on the details, and so
Yes.
that's what I would say there. Yeah,
Yeah. She's definitely the details to my no details.
yeah. You say that, Dave, but you know, one of the things that is so powerful with you is that you're so tuned in to the results.
Mm.
There's not too many people that I come across, Dave, that still bring the details along with them like you do,
Thank you.
because you capture the. So it's a gift. I'm just going to say it's a gift. I'm just going to say that it's one that I don't think I have, but you definitely have it. You move very quickly, but you tend to bring all the details with you, and I think that's very fascinating, and I
Oh,
draw
thank you.
I draw a lot of inspiration from that actually.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to. I appreciate it to be fascinating. It's, I take that as an
Whoop,
extreme.
whoop, yay me! Whoop.
Yeah. All right. So, any last thoughts you want to share with people as we wrap up this session in preparation for next week, where we're going to go through the process for organizational behavior, and we're going to
Wonderful,
sandwich the communication part in the middle of human behavior and organizational behavior. And today was the
wonderful.
yeah. So, give us some
Yeah,
wisdom. Wrap us
yeah.
up, Gary.
I would say this definitely plays into, Dave, exactly where you're going, because the organizational behavior, one is too small a number to achieve anything significant.
Mm,
And if you have an organization, you want some really good outcomes. You have to be good in relationships. And
mm,
so I love where you're going to take us next week on
yeah.
the organizational behavior. I love the model that
Mm,
you bring, Dave,
thank
from
you.
from the inputs, and therefore the attitudes,
Mm,
and then from that the behaviors, and then you get results, and then success uh, is is what we're all reaching for. And that
yep.
that model of human behavior, you just have an organization of humans,
Mm,
so you don't escape the model of it's still
no,
there. And what I love about what I've learned from you is once you learn it, you can leverage it. and
yeah.
and I
Beautiful.
love that. I love that part about what you do, Dave. So I'm
Oh,
excited about next week.
yeah, mate, very pumped myself. Gary, thank you so much. I know you've got a lot of work to do while you're over there at this conference to take some time out to share your wisdom with us.
Yeah, man.
Mate, looking forward to next week when we're going to talk about that organizational behavior. And so I'll be presenting that, and Gary will be grilling me through that
Yep.
process. And we're going to then be able to tie the human behavior, organizational behavior, and what we've talked about today together in the sandwich and
Wonderful.
look at that all perspectives. So please feel free to join us next week as we go through that. Gary, say good day to John for us,
All right, I'll do it.
and also our good friend Payne. If you see him, give him a big hug from me, will you?
I will. We played golf the other day. He's
Oh,
very
so I'm not
good,
the
by
only
the
one
way.
who's out there.
He's very good, and it was very hot.
Yeah, nice. Well, it was
Very
very
hot.
cold where I was. It was 11
Okay.
degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is, and it's probably like 45 Fahrenheit or something
Yeah.
stupid. It was
Yeah.
freezing. So I wish I was out there, but I got to play Royal Melbourne, so I'm not complaining. And
All
then we
right. That's a good one.
so man, it was great. Anyway, you
All
have
right.
a great time, mate.
Thanks,
Say
Dave.
hi to everyone, and we'll see you next week. Everyone, Kylie, Mario, for those, thank you for your commentary. All those of you watched, Stay tuned for next week when we wrap this up and get ready for the big event, which we're going to do the whole thing in a big workshop.
Yep. All right.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. See you. Bye-bye.